Welcome back everybody. Today you join me as I walk through puddles alongside the River Piddle. I have an apology to make. Where was the organ in last week's video? All the negative comments piling in. Isn't this Ben Mayton the Salisbury organist? And yet he doesn't play an organ. So he's just Ben Mayton, the Salisbury man. Well, today I have an organ for you. The organ I should have played last week, but which was removed from Fisherton Delamere Church, I'm afraid 40 years before I got there. Today we're in Piddlehinton in Dorset, and I'm off in search of that organ. You'll remember that the Fisherton Delamere Church was closed for regular worship in 1982, and that I found out that the organ was dismantled 2 years later, and it was brought here 50 miles away in Dorset. I wonder why they needed a new organ here. It'd be interesting to see what it looks like and what it sounds like. And even more than that, I ended last week's video by talking about the problem of a lack of organists. So I wanted to focus today, in particular, on the kind of music which works really well on a village church organ. And let's see how we get on with that. Little Puddle, Hind Puddle, Honey Puddle, and finally Piddlehinton. All of these are charming names given to this village over the centuries. It was first recorded in Anglo-Saxon times, when it was granted to the abbot of Milton, hence Hind Puddle meaning Marsh of the Monks. St Mary's Church sits peacefully at the southern end of the village. It was first dedicated to Mary back in 1299. But most of the architecture here is 15th or 16th century. Naturally, it's a spot of quiet seclusion, a haven of snowdrops, long grass and birdsong. And as I walk around, I hear for the first time on this channel the gentle tapping of the woodpecker. Welcome friends to St Mary's Church in Piddlehinton. I've driven an hour to get here, and every time I come into one of these buildings I'm glad that I did travel that far, because they're all completely different. And this is very much a Dorset church. Thomas Hardy's sister was the headmistress of the local school, and I'm sure he was very familiar with this building. What's your first impressions? I'll tell you mine, and I'll be very blunt. Blunt in a positive way, because there's not a single piece of rubbish in this church. It looks so immaculate. I'm sorry to sound so rude about other churches, but so often the splendour of the building is ruined by some ugly furnishing or just a piece of rubbish somewhere, whereas there's none of that here. It's just absolutely spectacular. A perfect example of a village church. I'm feeling rather excited, and I'll tell you why. Church histories never mention pipe organs, and that's where I come in. What I'm thinking is, while I'm playing, you can walk around this building. I say you can walk around. I'm here filming this on my own, so I'll film the walk around. And then while I'm playing, you can have a look around this church. Because there's just something I have to show you here, and that is the amazing pipe organ, which has come from Fisherton Delamere, last week's church. And I'm sure it would have fitted in really well in that church. The style of the wood and the pipe work. A very antique looking village church organ, and I can't wait to play. Let me put some lights on. So this organ is something of an enigma because we don't actually know who built it. However, I have a feeling that around the back we might have a clue. And yes, we do. Written in pencil right at the top there. It says, Sweetland's Bath, a very popular organ builder during the 1850s. And it actually says 1853 at the bottom. I wish I could read the rest of the writing, but I just can't. But if I get a really good camera shot of that, and if you're watching and you can read any of it, please just let me know in the comments. Let us all know. I wish I could read it. I just can't. I can't make out what's written there. So this could be an organ by, well, it's almost certainly an organ by William Sweetland of Bath, the same builder as St Mary's Lover and St Mary's Alderbury. And they're a good quality organ builder. I had a question on my Patreon page recently, which was, how can you tell if an organ is good quality? I'll tell you how. Just play the flute sound on its own. If it's a good organ, the flute will sound lovely, and it's one of my favourite stops. Let's switch this thing on. You don't actually need to switch it on because it has a pumping handle, which now is an excellent hazard for tripping over on your way to the switch. I'll stick with the electricity today. I want to be really specific in this organ demonstration by telling you exactly what these instruments can actually do. Lots of people think you can play Widor's toccata or some very complicated piece of Bach on an organ like this, but it was never designed for that. The Victorians had a completely different conception of church music to what we have now. If you go into a cathedral nowadays, you'll hear Bach's preludes and fugues, and the music the choir sings might be by Palestrina or Victoria or somebody like that. But the Victorians in their village churches, it was much more basic. Lots of arrangements of popular classical pieces played on the organ, like Strauss waltzes, things like that. And really just hymns. That's what the organ did, and that's what it was meant for. And you can tell that's what it was meant for because it just has one keyboard. It also has a pedal board, but it's really not for playing organ music. It's just an aid. Just gives a bit more weight to maybe the last note of a hymn. But these things really aren't meant for academic pieces of organ music. It was meant for playing hymns. Hymns are written for singers to sing. So there'll be the top line, which is the tune, and then if you have a choir, the different voices sing different lines of music. And if you put all four of those together, you have a lovely harmonious sound. And that's what the organ can replicate. It's not meant for really complicated music. Okay, so the power is on now, and the sound you can hear is the electric blower. Originally you would have had a choir boy or somebody pumping the organ throughout the service, and hopefully they wouldn't fall asleep at any point, which I know has happened in the past. In terms of stops, this organ has quite a good selection actually, compared with what you would expect. There's one stop listed as pedal pipes, so that just draws those big ones into action. But personally I wouldn't use the pedals because they're too heavy, they're too unreliable, and they're too easy to break. It's very easy, I'm afraid, to damage something on one of these old instruments. And once that mechanism is damaged, there's not anybody who can fix it except for a professional. An organ builder would have to drive down and get inside to fix something like a stuck pedal pipe. So I personally wouldn't even use them. I play so many village church organs, I don't want to be the man who has a reputation for breaking them. So I just don't use those pedals at all on an organ like this one. But we always have an open diapason, and it will always sound fantastic. And you can tell, 1 D major arpeggio, lovely open diapason. And that's these big pipes up at the top. Stock diapason, I bet that will sound lovely as well. And you can tell it's an organ by a good builder because there's a really nice soft mellow tone to that stopped diapason. Left hand side, I have to draw your attention to the Cremona, which is a reed stop. Sounds something like a musical version of a duck. I don't think that's a rude comparison. It does sound a bit like a duck. It'd be brilliant for evoking the sound of fowl on the River Piddle here in Dorset. There's a new tune there coming along. Not all of the notes work. That's why it's hard for me to demonstrate it in a recorded piece, because I'll just have to keep stopping and playing it over and over again to try and fix the note that doesn't work. For now, I'll just use the main chorus of the organ. So let's talk about what these instruments can actually do, and I'll sit down. For that, what can they do? Mainly hymns. That's what they're meant for. This thing will do hymns very nicely, and there's no point me talking anymore. I'll get set up, you have a walk around the church, and enjoy a hymn. So this machine does a beautiful job of a good Anglican church hymn. The next question is, how about music for before a service? Normally in village churches, as everybody's walking in and taking their seats, the organist will be just gently playing something to get them in the right kind of mood for the service, whether it be a morning service or evensong. And I really enjoy doing the voluntaries because it's a nice way of creating an atmosphere. How do you choose music when the organ has just one keyboard and you can't use the pedals? Well, you can't really play organ music, can you? Because organ music has pedals, a full pedal board. So you won't have all of the notes on this organ that you need. So my advice is to play a classical arrangement of a piece written for another instrument. The purists will disagree with me for saying that, but that's my belief as a village church organist. People would much rather come in and hear somebody playing a lovely tune that they faintly know, rather than something that's very academic. Let's try something modern, like Farewell to Stromness by Peter Maxwell Davies. Farewell to Stromness by Peter Maxwell Davies. The next question, and the final important question, is what about music at the end of a service? You need something brighter, more cheerful, preferably more complicated, more impressive, something that people will be stunned by and they won't start chatting. That is more complicated because, in my opinion, there isn't much really good organ music for the ends of services when you don't have a pedal board. If you have a big instrument which has a powerful sound, It's much easier. If you're playing in a cathedral, it is really easy. It really is. There's so much music you can play that's impressive when the instrument alone has real force. But when you don't have that much volume or that many different tones and you don't have a pedal board, what can you do? Let me show you a piece of music written on 3 staves, i.e. an academic piece of organ music played on an instrument like this. And just let me know in the comments what you think. That was Franz Tunder's Prelude in G minor. He was a composer from Germany, much older than Bach even. He was born in 1614. And you heard how I was experimenting with various different kinds of pieces in that recording. Firstly, we had a hymn, and then music for before the service, or perhaps while people are receiving communion, something gentle. And finally, a closing voluntary, which is sometimes called a postlude. And the last piece in particular was experimental. I wasn't sure at the time of recording it whether it would work, and it's only once you get home, put the headphones on and have a listen, that you realise whether something works or it doesn't work. And perhaps in the next video we could focus on end of service music, trying to work out what the best pieces are to play at the end of church services in villages. I did, however, book St. Martin's this week so that I could play you 2 more pieces. But before we do, filming these videos is something of videography gymnastics, and I don't like to spoil the magic of my wanderings through the villages. But just take a look at this. This is the part you don't see. It's the editing stage, and it actually takes a lot longer than the filming. If you're filming alone, you need to film various different parts of the video at different times. And each of these little blocks you can see in my editing program are pieces of footage that I've moved into just the right place, so that what you're seeing on the screen is as close as possible to what I saw when I was wandering to that church and as I was looking around. And I hope you appreciated seeing all those different angles. The reason for me telling you this is because I think that part is so often overlooked. I think people think that the job is as simple as just walking into the church with a camera, which it certainly isn't. And perhaps the least you could do as you're watching this is to leave a comment below, because I really want as many people to engage with my videos as possible. It really helps to promote them if there's lots and lots of comments for us to read. And commenting on a video is of course completely free, and anybody can leave their valued opinion on my videos. That being said, if you would like to help support me more than that, and it'd be very kind of you if you felt that way, you can leave a donation to support me and my work. It's extremely helpful for me because it's one of the only ways that I can continue to make these films in the first place. You can support me using PayPal if you would like to. It's a simply fantastic way of sending a donation. It's instant and a big chunk of it isn't taken off and sent somewhere else. PayPal is really the best way. If you look underneath this video, you'll see the link, and if you click on that, you can make a small donation to support my work. I'd be so grateful for your help. If you'd like to support me a different way, please do head to my website, benmaytonmusic.co.uk, and there you'll see the address to send a cheque to. I don't like to interrupt my films by mentioning this, but I simply wouldn't be making these films otherwise, I'm afraid. Thank you so much for your help. I really appreciate it. For the second part of this video, I booked out St. Martin's Church because I wanted to show you the exact same piece I'd played at Piddlehinton on a much bigger organ, one which can really cope with those kinds of pieces. And I think this will show you the key differences between small village church organs and much larger instruments. Here's a recollection of Tunder's prelude at Piddlehinton. And now listen to the full glory of this piece from St. Martin's. That is great fun, playing the same piece on two different organs, and you would be able to tell the difference. It was plain and simple. St. Martin's has all of those reeds. Looking down beneath the bench and beneath the stops, you can see on the left-hand side there are levers for the principal, the bass flute, and most importantly, the trombone. Extremely powerful organ stop. You just don't have those in the villages. St. Martin's organ is bluntly quite ugly from its exterior. It doesn't look grand and imposing, does it? In fact, it's the wrong way round. The board-on pipes on display were not supposed to be there. The organ was turned 90 degrees so that the organist had more contact with the choir. And because of that, it doesn't look as it was intended, but it sounds magnificent. It's the greatest dark horse of all Salisbury organs, I think, and it's my favourite church organ in this lovely city. Now, time to finish with a grand hymn, which I recorded just after playing the prelude. And it was easy to choose this hymn because it takes us all the way back to Fisherton de la Mer, where this journey started last Sunday. Like St. Martin's, Fisherton de la Mer Church had a rood screen from 1912, built by F.C. Eden. I hope you've watched that video. If you haven't, do go back and watch it. But it was commissioned by the patron of the living for the rector at Fisherton de la Mer, Athelstan Riley, who was a hymn writer, and perhaps his most famous hymn goes like this. Ye watchers and ye holy ones, bright seraphs, cherubim and thrones, raise the glad strain, Alleluia. Cry out, dominions, princedoms, powers, virtues, archangels, angels, choirs, Alleluia. Great words and a great tune to sing them to. Until next week, this is Ye Watchers and Ye Holy Ones. Cheerio.